I hope you've had a good lunch. Yeah, I know. The quality of the food is fabulous. But it can make you drowsy, so we're going to try and wake you up. So this is the Women on Boards panel. I was saying earlier, this is my favorite topic, and we could talk about it over and over. And I have invited a stellar group of businesswomen who are on boards or who can be on a board. Those of you over there, can you come over here? Can you move to the middle seats? Okay? Thank you. Thank you. Because I feel like you're outside, you know. I want people to be together. So let me introduce them to you. To my right is Amy Morris. She is CEO of Maybank, and she is from Malaysia. She's also chair of the 30% Club in Malaysia that tries to train as well as place, on women on boards. Maybank is everywhere. I have seen Maybank in different parts of Asia Pacific, so it is a huge responsibility. Next to me, from Australia, yes, I just blanked out. I'm so sorry. I'm going to plead being old. Amanda Johnston-Pell, she is a vice president at IBM on a particular product line. Yes. Oh, you IBMers are so proud, and you should be. And in her career, she's chief digital officer as well, and primarily in Asia Pacific region. And so she has served on boards, and let me get this right, IBM Australia, a subsidiary of AMP, which is a big insurance company. Yes, and financial services. Who else?
The Australian American Leadership Dialogue.
Mike, please. Okay.
The Australian American Leadership Dialogue, which is second track private diplomacy between Australia and the US. And the Sydney School of Entrepreneurship. I've had a stint in my career as an entrepreneur, a co-founder of a tech startup. So the discussion earlier about giving back, that's the focus there.
On my left is Jimena Fernandez. Oh, Mexico's here. She's on the board of Aliatica, which is a transport infrastructure company. She has had a long career, I think in 15 years in the financial services sector. In addition to that, she also advises and trains companies on environmental, social, and governance issues, those metrics that are now becoming mandatory. So please welcome her as well. Jimena Fernandez. And then on my extreme left is the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission of Thailand. Big, big deal. The stock exchange reports to that commission, just so you understand the structure. And Rowan Vadi is a long time, yes, is a long time public servant, having served in different capacities within the government of Thailand, and this is one of the most impactful. And you were not here yesterday, but, or the day before. Was it yesterday? We opened the stock exchange. We opened the stock exchange of Thailand, and she announced something special. And basically, it is strengthened language on gender diversity in the Corporate Governance Code of Thailand. When I first called her, I said, do you think this is possible? Can we do this? And the staff was there, and she says, of course we're going to do it. And I said, it has to be in time for the summit. And they did it. She says, you guys heard the deadline, we're going to do it. And she did. But that's what it takes. The commitment of partners in government and business that, yes, we're going to address this issue. So I'm going to start a round robin. Can you tell me, Amy, I'm going to ask each one of you, what is the percentage of women on boards in your respective countries? And has there been progress in your estimation?
Okay, I am from Malaysia. My name is Amy. Yes, I come from Malaysia. I am the chair of the 30% Club Malaysia. The 30% Club is essentially a business campaign run purely by advocates who offer up their time voluntarily. And the intent is really to get as many women on boards as possible because, as you know, boards in terms of the new world where ESG has become a huge imperative, the G especially, the governance components of how organizations are run, are very, very critical to ensure that companies do what their stakeholders have desire them to do. So in that sense, the 30% Club, which is a global organization with chapters all around the world, that is the key intent. And in Malaysia, the 30% Club was established in 2015. And yes, Irene, it's been tremendous. Over the close to 10 years, we have actually seen a doubling of women on boards across all listed companies. And of course, from within the top 100, we are close at almost, we are at 26%. But here's the thing. Whilst we have seen a tremendous growth over the last 10 years, we seem to have seen some kind of plateauing. And to me, I think it's because the whole choir is out already. We know who the choir is. And so getting people to join the choir, to get us from that 26% to 30%, we may need different set of, like Kun Rumbadi has officially announced today, different language, different discursive references, different kinds of activation to build awareness. So hopefully over the next few years, Malaysia will be able to achieve 30%, and 30% global is also trying to reach 30% by 2030. I'll have a lot more comments to make about that to only achieve it at 2030, but for now, that's the kind of overview for Malaysia. Thanks, Irene.
Malaysia, however, is one of the only country in Asia-Pacific region with a quota. And it was instituted, I was actually there, by the former Prime Minister. So it's not a law. It was sort of a target set by executive order that 30% of board seats in Malaysia's largest listed companies must have 30% women on boards. But you're at 26. You know, Australia was afraid of plateauing as well, but they got past it. So
very quickly.
Very quickly. So tell us, where are you in Australia?
So at the moment, if we look at our listed boards, so ASX is the term we call, in our top 200, we're at 34.6%. If we go a little bit higher to the ASX 300, so the top 300, we're at 32.6%. But interestingly, and this is one of the learnings, the government boards, Australian government boards, are at 50.2%. Now that hasn't always been the case. If you just go back a decade, 2008, we were at 8% and going backwards fast. So a lot of strategies were put in play. Irene, you mentioned the data earlier in your report, which was very comprehensive. Australia is one of very few countries that didn't do the quota, they did the targets. And doing that, non-legislated, but we'll talk a little bit more about the ASX recommendations and principles, we were able to get over that 30%. Now that was achieved back in 2019. The conversation now in Australia is really moving to a 40-40-20 in terms of gender equity. There's a lot of positive discussion at the moment about the role of women in the broader economy and society, which is fueling this discussion. And I think, interestingly, one of our top press in Australia for finance, Australian Financial Review, literally just recorded their top 10. But importantly, the number one spot, never happened before, for the most powerful and influential board directors, 2 women. And in the top 10, over half were women. So there really is a story to be told here, but interestingly, not one lever of change. And I think there's some learnings there potentially for other countries.
Well, I happen to know the Human Rights Commissioner who got things going. And she, remember when I said yesterday, change doesn't happen without pressure. She created the pressure, Liz Broderick. And she started using the media by saying, here are the numbers, we could do better. You don't know this, but I did the first ever report on the largest women directors in Australia's largest companies, and my sponsor was AMP.
Oh, beautiful connection.
Yeah. Okay, Jimena, in Mexico.
All right, so in Mexico, there are only 143 companies listed in the stock exchange. And in total, women hold 10% of the board seats. But only 2.2% are independent board members. Out of that 10%, 2% are independent board members. Now, we have something very interesting in Mexico that other countries don't have. We have an option. So the rest of the boards are shareholders or alternates, which is an interesting option that I was mentioning that doesn't exist in other countries. Now, this option is very convenient for companies because they bring on women into their boards, they put them as alternates, they never sit them on the board, and it's sort of a pinkwashing because they report that they do have women, but they're not sitting on the board, really. They're alternates. Pinkwashing. So only 2.2 independent board members, and that's where we can see that there's a big challenge, and we're far behind OECD countries as well. Only 4 boards are chaired by women, and in 2019, 29% of the listed companies had no women on their boards. And
almost a third of companies had 0 women.
Exactly. And in 2020, that percentage went to 25%. So it's a very relative improvement. There's big opportunities. Now, the positive thing is that there's big traction of changing this story in Mexico, and there's a lot of initiatives pushing more women on boards. So there's great